Hey everybody, welcome to the PC Perspective Podcast. This is episode, 216 or something like that. We are recording on August the 29th, 2012. I'm Ryan Shrout.
I'm Jeremy Hellstrom.
I might be Josh Walrath, since we're being so non-committal.
And I'm Alan Malventano.
Well, there you go. That's the whole crew. We've got the regular crowd here.
And thanks for joining PC Perspective Podcast. We'll see you next week.
Wow.
Sometimes I wish it were like that. Sometimes I wish. A quick reminder for everybody that maybe listens to this in the downloaded form. If you have not realized, we are no longer on the Twit Network. We are hosting this on our own. We still are streaming it live. So if you want to see us do the show live, you want to show up on time, have us start late, those kinds of awesome things, you need to go to pcper.com/live. That is the place where you will find us streaming. You get to interact in the chat room. You can bug Josh and Jeremy and Alan and me in the chat room, Ken too, and be part of that. Still the same URLs for you to share with your friends. pcper.com/podcast is the place to go to download all the episodes, see the videos after the fact, that type of thing. Excuse me while I adjust my Nest thermostat because it decided to set the temperature to 80 degrees in here, which is not cool. No pun intended.
Dar.
Let's jump into the stuff, I guess, is what we're going to do. We actually had a little bit busier week this week as opposed to recent ones, and we're going to start with a roundup of GTX 660 Ti graphics cards, an article that I just published up this morning. Actually, I took we talked about the 660 Ti last week. Nothing super dramatic here in terms of new specifications or anything. These are just retail cards from EVGA, Galaxy, MSI, and Zotac. And you can see the allotment here in the pictures. What's kind of interesting about this is they're all overclocked, although kind of NVIDIA doesn't like me to use the term overclocked anymore when talking about these. They're just higher boost states and higher clock states. I don't know, because overclocking insinuates going outside of warranty, I guess, or some crap like that. First one up was the EVGA card. You can see it here. It is the most reference designed of the 660 Ti's you looked at. You can see if you look at the back, it actually is the half length, the shorter PCB that we saw with the 670 when it first came out. Nothing else changes on that. Still got 2 DVI, 1 DisplayPort, 1 HDMI connection, and it does come with these really cool stickers, though. If you look at these stickers,
Stickers are awesome.
Nice. There's one for on the top if you have a white case, and there's one on the bottom if you have a darker colored case, and we don't really care about stickers here in the box, but it's like those are actually kind of cool. Talks about basically having a little pride in the fact that you built your own system. I think we can all respect that. If you look at the GPU Z-Shot, you'll see the specs of this one. 980 megahertz core base clock, 1059 boost clock. Keep in mind the references are 915 by 980. Galaxy was the next card. This is a full-length PCB. They actually had a 6-pin and an 8-pin power connector as opposed to 2 6-pin connectors. It did not, in my testing, really reveal any additional benefits for overclocking or anything like that. And then its clock speeds are 1006 base and 1085 boost. MSI, another card with a custom cooler, full-length PCB. You can see here it uses the twin Frozer design that we've talked about quite a bit on the podcast. Its clock speeds are 1020 and 1098. And finally, the Zotac Amp Edition, I'm sorry, also uses a half-length card, but it actually still uses a custom cooler, as you can see. So it's still a shorter length card if you have a smaller case or something like that to worry about. And this is what's interesting about this one. If you look at its clock speeds, it has the highest base clock of 1033, has the highest boost clock of 1111, and it's the only one of the 4 cards to overclock the memory speed. It actually is running at 1652 megahertz instead of 1502 megahertz. So you get 150 megahertz clock rate, which results in a 600 megahertz kind of effective rate. It runs at 6.6 gigahertz instead of 6 gigahertz effective GDDR5 speeds. So, oops, wrong button there. If we kind of take all that for what it's worth, I won't go through all the pages of benchmarks. We'll just show you one. Like Battlefield 3, obviously probably the most popular one. what you'll see here is when we compare all four of them at 1080p, they're fairly close in line, 58, 59, 58, but then 62. And the 62 is the Zotac card. And as we find through most of our testing at both 1080p and 2560 by 1600, that in Skyrim, in Battlefield 3, in Batman, in Metro, the combined performance of the combined benefits of having the highest clock speeds out of the box and the only one to have overclocked memory out of the box results in faster benchmarks compared to these other models, right? I think like in Dirt 3 there wasn't a big difference, Deus Ex there wasn't a big difference, and as you can see here in Metro it's not a huge difference, you're going from 29 to 31.3, but there is definitely something there, which is, you know, good to know. Although also when comparing retail cards, the important things to look at are power consumption, kind of moderately important here. They're all fairly close. You know, the difference between 280 and 290, not a big deal. Look at the temperatures though. This is really important. The EVGA card uses like a reference-ish type cooler design, and it's 10 degrees hotter than the Galaxy and the Zotac, and 13 degrees hotter than the MSI card under a load. And that's a significant difference. You know, it's a lot. 10 degrees Celsius is a lot for a GPU to differ between these cooler designs. And if you look at the sound pressure, you know, basically the noise levels in these systems as well, you'll see that it's also the loudest. So it was the hottest and the loudest cooler, which kind of is a double.
Kind of like that Minaj girl.
Yeah.
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 Which is why we've got something black in front of the screen.
Yeah, we gotta hide that part. But MSI had the lowest temperature at 63 degrees C, but also the quietest noise levels too. 39.1 under a load, only, you know, 0.3 of a decibel difference between its idle and its load noise level. So it's actually a pretty impressive stuff there. The Zotac one was a little bit louder. It was really pretty close to the EVGA card. Other kind of interesting notes here, overclocking. This is something we had a lot of feedback. I know we did kind of like a question thread on what do you want to see in graphics card reviews on a Reddit subreddit, the hardware forum essentially. And one of the things they wanted to spend a lot more time on overclocking. The overclocking of these cards is difficult and interesting because it all depends on what applications you want to use. How do you define an overclock as stable? I tested several different games. I know NVIDIA had said that they use 3D Mark 11 for some things, and in my testing, I could get one of these 660 Ti's to run at 100 megahertz offset in 3D Mark 11, but I can only get it to run at 60 megahertz offset in Unigen's Heaven benchmark. So I decided to go with the worst case scenario. You know, we want to see this is, you know, as close to realistic as we can get with a wider kind of array of tiles, right? Things that are super power heavy and things that are a little bit power lighter. And so the Heaven benchmark is what we decided. If it can complete a couple of rounds of the Unigen Heaven test, we would consider that stable. Overclocking on this Kepler card works the same. You adjust your power target up. Most of the cards, 3 of the 4 cards, we could adjust to 123% power target. The MSI card had a problem though. We could only hit 114 megahertz power target increase, which obviously was going to limit its overclockability in our testing. I worked with MSI a little bit to try to figure out why this was the case. We couldn't come up with anything. We tried it both in the EVGA software and in MSI's Afterburner software, and the same 114% limit was presented to us. We couldn't really push it any further than that. And then we just adjust the GPU clock offset and see where the most stable is. If we go back to the page in the overclocking results, you'll see the maximum stable base clock speeds and boost clock speeds. The Zotac was the winner here with a 1093 and then 1171 boost clock. So they're all within reason from each other, but if you look at, like, the MSI card was actually the lowest performing card in terms of overclock. But I feel like it would have better performance, obviously, if we could push that power target from 114 up to like 123 or 125, like the other cards were able to get to. So that's.
Now, were you able to up the voltage on that card, on that chip?
So both EVGA and MSI software would only let us go up to 1.175. And what I found interesting there was that even before I adjust that kind of voltage slider, it was almost hitting that, and in a couple of cases it was hitting that voltage anyway, just by adjusting the power target and the clock speeds. So I don't know if maybe there needs to be another update to these overclocking utilities to open up a little bit more of the voltage capability. Because in my testing, you know, like I took 2 of the cards and I just pushed the slider up to 1.175, which was the highest, and went through these overclocking, and I couldn't get any more than, you know, 1 or 2 megahertz difference. There was effectively no difference in what overclocking headroom I had with these cards.
Yeah, the Afterburner 2.3 finally enabled the voltage, and I'd use that on the GTX 670 that I had. And I was actually able to get that up to like 1.275.
Okay.
And it did have about a 25 megahertz increase in the overall top end overclock. But yeah, I mean,
what about the temps?
The temps
what about the temperatures?
Were
Must have
up
gone
like 3 or 4 degrees.
That's not too bad for
low.
that much
Yeah,
power.
it wasn't bad at all. I mean, that Twin Frozer 2 was, you know, doing a pretty good job.
Yeah.
But also, when you're using the Afterburner, you have to kind of go into the settings and make sure that you enable the voltage. Otherwise, it's not immediately available to you.
It's one of those things where I don't think they're really have been, I don't say given permission to enable that, but I think maybe some people just don't like having that in there. People at NVIDIA or other partners maybe, but they kind of get around that by not having it on by default. You have to go in and enable it. So if you look, actually, if you look at this, the overclock GPU temperatures that we showed in our review, actually you can see that the EVGA card went from 76 to 80 degrees Celsius. So it went up 4C, as did the Zotac card, but it went from 76 to 70. So we're still at a 10 degrees Celsius difference there. But if you look at the MSI and the Galaxy cards, like no difference. 1 degree on MSI side and 0 degrees on the Galaxy side in terms of the actual kind of overclocked temperature differences. I really think this shows that the market for these aftermarket coolers, you know, these custom designed coolers is totally worth it versus getting one of the reference designs if you plan on doing overclocking, if you're worried about noise, if you're worried about any of that kind of stuff in the long run. So conclusionary statements to this review. Obviously, you should go to PCPro.com and read through the whole thing and check the benchmarks. Each of these 4 cards, as of today, was selling for $309 on Newegg. So that being said, which one would I recommend? I think for me personally, the Zotac gets the nod here because it has the best out-of-box performance. Do I think that all the other cards in our test could be clocked to the same Zotac settings, including the memory speed, and get the same performance? Yes, but you know, we're judging it. I think if we get into that, then every card would be the same rated all the time forever, right? Because there are very few cases where a card really stands out on what it can do with overclocking and more about what you get out of the box with it. So Zotac gets the nod there for having the overclock memory speeds and thus better overall performance than the other cards. And then the MSI and the Galaxy ones got our silver awards because they had great custom coolers, very quiet. MSI has to make sure they figure out the issue with the power target going from 114 to 123. They need to be able to have the same capability as that. And the EVGA card, if you bought one of those already, I'm not saying return it. It's just it was louder, it was hotter, and it had the lowest overclocks out of the box as well. So if you're going to spend the same money, you know, maybe that's not the best choice. I do put in there in the conclusion of that, but there's, you know, EVGA is known to have great support. They're, you know, their Precision X software that you can use with any vendor, but their Precision X software is among the best if you're trying to support that kind of stuff. Also worth doing there. So if you're looking for a 660 Ti, there's some options. Any thoughts on what that is so far, or on the review, or anything else?
You know, one thing I'd noticed is interesting. That GTX 670 from MSI that I tested, it also had the 114% issue. I didn't realize they actually went beyond that because it's the first GTX 600 series that I've been able to test. But yeah, it was turn up the slider, it goes to 114.
Yeah, see, that's, and yeah, and I know MSI saw that on their side as well with this particular one. I said, hey, because I called Alex, I says, look, all these other cards are going to 123, and one of them was going to 125. Yours is only going to 114. I think it's holding you guys back for our story. And he's like, well, let me see. And they installed the software and did all that same kind of stuff and had the same result and issue. So I don't know what it is. I don't know if maybe maybe they already have increased their power target a little bit in order to get kind of higher boost speeds up and down, and so the 100% is different for them than it is for Zotac and Galaxy and EVGA in this instance, and maybe that's why it's only going up to 114. It'd be interesting to see like an actual number rather than a percent. Tell me what that actual number is. Okay, 100% is supposed to be, I don't know, 150 watts for this particular part or whatever it is. So 120, I get what that should be. But if maybe they're adjusting what that base level is, and that's why they went up to 114. Sounds like something that an AIC would do to kind of stand out from the crowd, right? So let's talk a little bit of processor information here. This is yesterday, right? AMD had a presentation at Hot Chips, which is just an awful name, but it's a long-running show on CPU architecture, and they talked a little bit about Steamroller.
Just a small amount.
Okay.
Mark Papermaster, CTO of AMD, was able to get up in front of the conference, and he explained a few things going on at AMD. Now, this was a somewhat larger presentation, and I primarily covered the Steamroller part, but the first part was all about that they believe the future of computing is this surround computing thing. Surround computing is not just big screens in front of you and to your side. It's everything you do in life is going to have some kind of processor jacking it up. So you want to go lunch.
Ubiquitous.
What's that?
So who trademarked Ubiquitous? So they had to come up with a new one.
I have no idea. But anyway, you want to go and get some lunch. The next thing you know is it predicts that you're going to go to your favorite place, and it brings up your specials on the cell phone and asks if you want to order it, even though you want to go to the sushi place different, and of course it's going to make mistakes like that. But they're going to try to get it so every single part of your aspect of your life, whether your refrigerator calls you up and says the milk went bad, the cat threw up a hairball right in front of it, anything like that, they're going to try to have their silicon in there. Now, of course, the most interesting part was the near term, which we talked about, Steamroller. Steamroller, as you may or may not know, is a next generation architecture. Well, okay, it's like a partial generation architecture from AMD that is still based on Bulldozer, but it is a jump from both Bulldozer and the current iteration, which is Piledriver, and it's going to be coming in next year. Now, they talked about some of the main architectural differences between this chip and then the last, and the things that they're going to do to improve performance per clock, to improve energy efficiency, and I mean, they went over a few things, and the presentation that I'd gotten was kind of bland and a little basic. They said things like, we're going to have 30% more ops going through this chip than what we see with Bulldozer, or branch mispredicts are going to decrease by 25% with this new product, but they don't explain to how exactly they're going to do it. Now, two of the things that really stuck out were, and one of the issues that many people have thought about with Bulldozer is that you've got these modules that essentially have two integer units and a shared floating point unit, floating point MMX SSE, and it's got a single 4-wide decode stage in there that's feeding all three of these units. Well, with Steamroller, they're doubling the amount of decode, and so we've kind of heard through the grapevine it is still going to be 4-wide, but now there's going to be two of them feeding the integer execution units and the floating point. So that's going to be a pretty significant boost in performance right there, because that was kind of a bottleneck if you really think about it, and to compare it to other architectures from not only Intel with their i5, i7 series, but also from AMD with their Phenom 2 series. So when you had all cores and all execution units going, it had fewer decode units actually feeding them. And so they think that may be one of the significant aspects of the performance that we're seeing from Bulldozer. Now, just as they've done with Piledriver, Steamroller is going to have more power, efficiency work done to it. So, for example, they've kind of cut down the floating point unit, and if you look at that picture that we've got on there, it's still got the 228-bit FMAX, but it's gone from 2 MMX units to 1, and they've actually shared a lot of the silicon in between all of those units, so they've cut down the size of that floating point, and that kind of makes up for the increased amount of die size that the 2 by 4 wide decode units will have. They're going to increase the cache. The caches, the L1 caches, were a little bit too small for what they were asked to do. They're also having improvements for like cache misses, and on other stuff. I mean, it's very general what they told us, but I think one of the last most interesting things that they really did was the L2 cache is now can be dynamically resized. I think that they've kind of split it into 4 parts. So if you have something that does not require all that L2 cache, it'll start shutting down portions of it, and so you're going to save power, and essentially that's it. And as soon as you need more cache, it's going to activate the other ones, and you'll see the improvement with those things. Like video decoding does not require a lot of L2 cache. So I mean, if you're watching a movie, there's no real reason to have all that L2 cache active when you don't really need it. One of the last things that they talked about, and this will not be in the steamroller generation, is that they're taking some aspects of the GPU design work and putting them into CPU. Now, the slide that Ryan just showed is basically they're using these high-density libraries to design chips and portions of the chips that it will actually shrink the amount of space that is used, but still have the same kind of functionality. In this slide, we see a portion of the floating point unit, and by using these high-density libraries, they're shrinking it by about 30%. And because of the way they're doing it, they're actually saving power by a pretty significant amount. Now, this is all well and good, but the problem is this is more or less, even though it's a high-density library, it's a standard cell design, and so you're going to have issues with getting it clocked up as fast as you potentially can as compared to a full custom cell design, which is that top portion. It's larger, but it's also going to be a whole lot faster because these cells are well known, the electrical properties are getting well known, and this hand-placed setup, even though it's very time-consuming and man-hour heavy, it's going to be faster. Now, they say with 28 nanometer HK Metal Gate and all the other extras, it's not going to be that big of a deal. Well, actually, it's going to be past that. It's probably going to be about 20 nanometer once we finally see these high-density cells being put into a CPU. So there's still got a lot of work going on with that, but it's kind of nice to see not only CPU engineering going into GPUs, but some of the GPU design stuff to get these massively large GPUs out in a timely manner,
Right.
being put to the CPUs. So I don't know if you had any other impressions about that, or something that you thought was important, interesting that I may have missed.
Not really. I saw you posted at the end of the story a little bit about what they're calling now the AMD Freedom Fabric, which is a new name essentially for the C Micro stuff. Is that right?
Yeah, it used to be called French Fabric, but no, that's not my original joke. That's a Lawson thing that he called him French Fabric. No, it's Freedom Fabric.
Freedom Fabric.
Freedom Fabric. Boy, you know what? I'm not even drinking tonight, and I'm slurring my words.
See, that's the problem.
Old habits die hard.
I guess so. But yeah, the C Micro purchase is, I think it's going to start paying off a little bit for AMD. They're getting their Opteron servers, Opteron server chips into that. That fabric is this, massively interconnected networking between these server boards, and these server boards are tiny. They're 12 inches.
Yeah, here's one
long,
down here.
about 4.5 inches high. And they've got a full-sized Opteron processor in there, and some 8 to 16 or 32 gigs of memory just on those SO-DIMMs, and they're very dense, pretty power efficient, and we're probably going to see and hear a lot more about those by the end of the year when they start rolling these out. And something that AMD obviously wants to do, and something we're seeing already. Is they're going to move away from these non-GPU CPUs pretty quickly. And we're going to see Steamroller as an APU probably be introduced also as an Opteron-based server with, you know, the HSA, the heterogeneous system architecture, really at the forefront, and they're going to be really slamming these in those C-micro servers. And it makes a lot of sense.
As virtualization machines.
Pardon?
Like, they're really pushing the virtualization. Because the idea with those little tiny cards and that vast interconnect, and the fact that you can call on GPU resources the same way you can CPU resources, at least when the HSA gets a little bit more programming strength behind them. So AMD's, I think, is really going to push virtualization.
It could
really
be
cheap.
But the area that probably this is strongest in is the scientific high performance computing applications, which will leverage all of that floating point power in an APU. So I think it's going to be interesting to see what they actually do. Go ahead, Jeremy.
Yeah, no, I think that that's another way that they're going to do it, and they just released a new card, and I'm trying to remember which kind of Fire Pro it was. I think it was a 4000. Essentially aimed at, you know, high-powered computing.
Yeah.
So they're going to pair that, but it's just what the HSA is going with, and the way that AMD really seems to be pushing the idea that, you know, a system should be able to call on a CPU resource or a GPU resource depending on what it needs, as opposed to depending on how far it's got to travel through paths to talk to anything. So, hey, it makes a lot of sense that if they can provide that sort of heterogeneous computing in a virtualized environment, not only can they look for the scientific high-price, high-power machines, they can also sort of try and cut Intel out and say, well, look, we don't have hyper-threading, but we're cheaper, and we can probably produce just as many threads as Intel can, and still probably come out a little bit cheaper. And if the Fabric interconnect from C-Micro, you know, makes that possible,
Right.
we might see AMD back in the server room in a bigger way than we have in a long time, and I kind of hope so, because otherwise there's this new little guy coming up that's really going to cut out a lot of their power.
Yeah. We did post another review up this week. Matt posted the Asus ZenBook Prime UX31A Ultrabook. This is kind of like, I guess this would we consider this the second revision, like the second major product from this. Alan, of course, has the first one. This one uses Ivy Bridge HD 4000 graphics. It has a 1080p IPS screen, which Matt actually fell in love with. The design is basically the same, though, in terms of kind of the aesthetics and all that kind of stuff. For the most part, Matt really liked it. He had some issues with bleed through on the screen. You can see here it kind of demonstrates it a little bit. We actually had to get a second model shipped to us, and while it was much better, it still had a little bit of that issue. So if we look at the battery life there, it's actually really good. Nothing really stands up to that Lenovo X230 though. Look at that, it's crazy. And then we've got our normal benchmarks and all that kind of stuff. And I would say his general take on it was mostly positive. As long as you go in there knowing things are going to happen, like I think one of the body of it was not exactly straight, and he kind of had to, flex it back into place. I know, Alan, you've talked about having to do that before. Ken's holding up his MacBook Air for the same reason.
Yeah, if you pick it up by just like one corner,
yeah,
like you go to grab it from a front corner, when you go to put it down, it will not sit back level. So you pretty much just have to.
It's like a feature. It's a flexible laptop.
Yeah.
It'll conform to your lap.
Right. So but this is great because if your desk is not perfectly flat, you like Kyle used to advertise from Hard ACP with the rat pads,
you could
bend them. If your desk wasn't flat or your surface was flat, you put it over your knee and you kind of flex a little bit until it bends to the right shape. And now you can do the same with your laptops.
Sweet.
Don't do that. Don't do that with the laptops though. But overall, a good laptop. So check out that review if you are interested in the ZenBook Prime. Right now, we are going to take our quick commercial break. We're going to thank our friends from MSI who have a message for you about one of their upcoming products.
The all-new Z77 M-Power mainboard from MSI is poised to change the overclocking game. Every Z77 M-Power board will have a factory 24-hour military-class burn-in test completed before shipping. Additionally, performance-optimized features such as GoToBIOS, Multi-BIOS 2, V-checkpoints, Bluetooth 3.0, and onboard Wi-Fi allow users convenience and total system control over their overclocking and gaming experience. This is the new endurance champion, Z77 mPower from MSI.
Thanks, MSI, for that. Now we're going to talk about a few news items from the week, starting with an EVGA power supply. And I don't know how many of you really need this, but we have hit the limit of a traditional US-based home power circuit, and they've released a 1500-watt power supply under their EVGA NEX 1500 classified branding. And it overclocks, everybody, to 1650 watts. What do you think about that chrome bar at the front? To like, almost makes it look like a server power supply, I guess, right?
So you angry at Edison for pushing the, what, 120 volt instead of 220?
Now I am.
Yep.
Now I am, yeah.
Damn him.
So
Tesla all the way.
Doesn't he need like a 20 amp outlet or something?
No, this will run off a 15 amp outlet. It's just it's got such high efficiency that it can actually offer that wattage out. And Lee has one currently running through tests at his lab up in Cincinnati, just not too many miles from where we're at right now. So
Yeah, there was a
we'll
blackout there yesterday. Somebody turned on his air conditioner at the same time he had this running.
We had to buy some extra power load, some load testers and stuff. So it has, one of the things that it has is it has Supernova software. It will have the ability so you can monitor voltage, current draw for each rail, the power used, efficiency, fan profiles. Same thing that Corsair launched with their AX1200i, with the Corsair Link integration, which we'll have a review up of that in the next couple of days as well. I like the if you look at the cables, I just think they look cool. Like the power cable, the custom power cable that comes with, it's kind of like the round design to it. And you'll see, I don't know if you can really see it in this picture, but you can see the power cable has like a different. You can't use a standard power cable, which will probably suck down the road when you lose this cable or something like that, which might not be great.
It's just a 230 to 120.
I guess, if you say so. I don't know.
I've had to find them for printers before.
It's a standard outlet. It's
This
just,
part, no, the female part here. This part.
The end that goes into the power
it's on a 45-degree angle.
It's different. Like you can't use a normal power plug for that.
Yeah, it's a
No,
rectangle.
you need one that's got 230 watt.
Well, there you go. I don't have that. I don't have any of these that would fit in that, and that's what I'm saying. So,
Your dryer might.
If you look at the
As
power,
hard as I pushed it in, it just would not fit.
I just took my knife out and I carved some of the plastic off the connector. Now it fits fine. We're good.
Kind of like what you did with that, PCIe card that you wanted to fit into AGP.
Yes, exactly. We actually have done that with HDMI cables that don't plug in all the way. Just kind of carve off some of the plastic coating around the connector. Their cable connectors are cool. They're already, what do we call that?
Color coded?
No, the fact that each wire is individualized, sheathed.
For her pleasure?
Yes, exactly. Yep. Sheathed for her pleasure. If you look here, you can see a little mock-up of the software at work too. This would really be handy, both either this or the Corsair software for like our GPU test beds, being able to monitor power draw at the video card level as opposed to the whole system, which you'll be able to do with this kind of stuff. So it could be cool for that kind of stuff. It's going to be expensive. It has a 10-year warranty, $450 MSRP.
And it only weighs 8.5 pounds.
I can't get over this metal bar on the front of it though, like
because it weighs 8.5 pounds.
But it's useless. Like you can't pull on any computer case that I've ever seen. You can't pull the power supply out with it.
Yeah, but if you have it outside, you could use it as a kettle weight.
Yeah, it's true.
Or a weapon, one or the other, your choice. So that's the EVGA NEX classified, overclockable to 1650 watts. For those of you who need that. Also, just like stupid, crazy stuff. Jeremy, I don't know, did you read any about this? The PowerColor HD 7990 Devil 13?
Yeah, it's one of those, double your pleasure type things. It is, in theory, an actual 7990. So you're going to be seeing two 7970 GPUs with 3 gigabytes of memory apiece. And in theory, it may well be on a single PCB,
I
or
think
at least interconnected
there
inside.
there were some people tweeting me that this was actually a 7970X2, and I think part of the story here is AMD may have given the go-ahead to call this a 7990 instead of a 7970X2, like a brand that they were holding on to, which kind of indicates to me that it's possible that AMD may not ever come out with its own 7990, like a,
I think you're probably right.
one that does that. So they might leave it to their partners to kind of create just freakishly enormous designs like this.
Well, it's not so bad. It's only 3 slots.
Yeah, but
I mean, it could be much worse.
how long is that
Asus has been doing
PCB?
3 slots for years now.
Yeah.
And they're putting two
I didn't say those weren't
7970s on it, so
freakishly
come
huge
on.
too, though.
But because it says it's connected by a PLX chip, it does make me think that this is actually some sort of bizarre single PCB design, as opposed to a sandwich like we've seen before. on
Yeah,
other cards.
it looks like a single PCB just based on the picture, if it's accurate.
I think if you could
Well,
manage to power it outside of a PC, it'll double as a hoverboard from Back to the Future.
It's only 4 6-pin connectors. Come on, it's not that bad.
4
Yeah, just
6-pin
4.
connectors?
4 6-pin connectors.
No 8s, but 4. The estimated cost is between $899 and $999, which is expensive, but kind of
Fair.
where we expected it. Yeah, exactly. I guess we'll call it fair.
But
Also,
the big question is,
yeah, go ahead.
is somebody going to come out with a 12 gig version? Do you know how big and heavy that would be?
Well, because if they sell
Yes,
six,
because RAM chips are so stinking heavy.
if they sell 60 of
cool
these,
enough
they'll
can
sell
be.
5 of those.
But you pair those up with the monitor that Ken's got and triple surround, or go for 6 surround.
Yeah, if
Pretty
you're gonna
impressive.
go big, I guess.
12 gig.
I wonder, like the picture of the box that has like the wax seal at the top. I hope that's real. I hope
So
that's
you have to
real.
melt it off.
Well, they're talking about making 500 of them or so, I think. So could well be.
Yeah, they can do
You
it.
can put it in your Skull Trail system.
God, yeah, we still have those someplace. In other news, AMD adds a new FX processor and new pricing. Josh, did you look at these at all? And what do you think about these price cuts? I thought we were having trouble selling. Weren't we at one point not too long ago having stock issues with the 8150?
Probably about 6 months ago.
Was it that long ago? I thought it was just a couple months ago. You were like, "Hey, you still can't find FX 8150s, really."
No, it's probably about 6 months where you know they've
Time
been
flies.
able to, and nobody's been buying them.
So they're going to lower the
when
price.
It was at the $300, and now that they're sinking to I think 189 as the MSRP, and they've dropped that another 20, I believe that you can find online for that.
Nice. So yeah,
Yeah.
183 is the new pricing straight from AMD, and 251 with the liquid cooling system, which is a decent, self-contained liquid cooling system actually. So if you're going to buy it, I would.
That
I have
one
no
of the
problem with that.
Antec.
Asetek, I think maybe.
Oh,
Yep.
H10, okay.
Yeah. Any thoughts on the FX 4130 that they added to it? I mean, it's
It's kind of not very interesting because it's in between the 4100 and the 4170. The 4170 is the one that's clocked at 4.2 gigahertz with a turbo of 4.3 gigahertz. It's actually one of the better performing of the FX chips, just because it's sitting around the clock speed that AMD originally wanted those processors to be. This one is 3.8 gigahertz with a max of 4. And so it's not nearly as interesting. It still sits the same, 125 watt TDP. It is an FX part, so it is totally unlocked, except you can't unlock the other modules. So you've just got
boo.
2 modules, 4 cores, running at 3.8, I believe.
3.8 it says. All right. Alan, you want to tell us about Synology's refreshment of the disk station?
Refreshment.
That's a sentence, right?
The refresh maker. All right, so we looked at the 212 Plus back when we looked at the IO Safe. It was our means to connect it via network, since it was connected via USB. So the 213 and the 213 Plus are basically the same sort of thing, the same form factor, the same number of ports, except they're moving from USB 2 to USB 3. And the Marvell chip inside of it, the ARM processor, is going to be much faster. dual-core processor. So any of those things that did previously bottleneck the 212, which there were a few. I mean, there were some places where just the device itself was the limit, not necessarily the network or the connected devices. So yeah, it's good to see that it's I don't know how much faster it's going to go. They didn't give that much detail on the press blast, but yeah, it's definitely a nice little box. You can put 2 hard drives in it. You can connect a bunch of hard drives via USB. You can connect it gigabit
Can I say
Ethernet.
the colors look just like the Drobo colors now?
I don't know. They're just green LEDs.
Yeah, I don't know. Something about the black and the blue light at the bottom. I don't know.
Yeah, it's the same kind of ish. Glossy front. Yeah.
Yeah. Alrighty. Another. Speaking of giant graphics cards, Asus Mars 3 dual GTX 680 graphics card pictured, set to launch soon. Correction: apparently not going to be released at all. So this was we have them all over someplace here, but we have the Mars 2, we have the Ares, we have all these other enormous cards, and Asus kind of released them as limited edition runs. Here, Ken's gonna bring me one. No. This is the Mars 2, right? So this is a dual GTX 580 card, and it was well, it's enormous. It has 3, you can't really see it here, we don't have a close-up camera, but it's got 3 8-pin power connectors, and it's got this red button. You know what that red button does? It makes both fans go full speed immediately.
That is Back to the Future hoverboard mode.
Yeah, and this is a 3 slot card here, you can see as well.
So like what you're gonna fire up your crazy game or something that's actually gonna max the card out, and you have to bust open your case and hit a button?
Yeah, that's more for open testbed stuff, right? That button to do that, but it's essentially 2 GTX 580. So they're apparently going to do something like that for the GTX 680s. It was going to have 8 gigs of memory using a PLX chip, of course. I don't know if they mentioned specifically what GPU clock speeds they were going to use. It was going to draw 525 watts of power apparently at the max. You can see here another picture of it as well. I think they showed it a little bit at Computex. You can see here they showed off a little bit of the designs as well. If I can zoom in a little bit on this, so you can see the PCB is obviously going to be 3 8-pins again, according to that. It did have an SLI connector. This one did too, but I don't think it was ever active. But apparently Asus has come out and said that it's not going to be released just because, I don't know, there's not a huge market for the $1,500 video card anymore, or if there ever was, I don't really know. Or it could have been the 690, kind of pushed it out in terms of just where it was going to offer in terms of value and that kind of deal. So if you're saving up your pennies for the Mars 3, just buy a 680 and move on. That's more than enough than what you're going to need for the most part. EVGA Mini ITX Z77 motherboard in the works. This is another post from Tim. EVGA has been kind of like trying to push back into the motherboard business. I know, Jeremy, you're the one who was infatuated with the dual socket board, right?
Oh, yeah. EVGA's SRX.
Yeah. Did that ever come out? Was that released?
Yeah, it did.
How much was it?
I just got to load up the leaderboard here.
It's
but
on
it was
the
about
leaderboard.
$500 or so, I think.
Way
Oh,
to
sorry,
pay attention to
$650.
the leaderboard.
$650. Okay.
Dual socket LGA 2011. Come on, how could you not love it?
That's true. On the other side of the spectrum is this Mini ITX Z77 board. 1 PCI Express slot, 1 processor socket, 2 memory slots, 4 SATA, maybe a little bit more than that. Pretty nice overall features. It's cool to see them. They're promising lots of overclocking options and enthusiast options on a Mini ITX. We've obviously seen Mini ITX Z77s from Asus. We actually built a really solid, stable system. We took to QuakeCon. We did our whole podcast and video setup on. That was based on the Mini ITX Asus Z77 board as well. The P8 Z77i Deluxe had a lot of good luck with that too. So, interesting ideas, interesting kind of options for that. Does this have? It's got mini. It looks like it has.
Any HDMI?
No, that's
DisplayPort?
It's DisplayPort and/or Thunderbolt. But I think we would have. I don't think.
It's like perfect for a home theater PC.
It does have Thunderbolt.
It's Thunderbolt right next to HDMI.
Or no, it says possibly Thunderbolt, so we're not sure if it's Thunderbolt or just mini DP. So keep an eye out for that, I guess. And I think we have, let's see, maybe one or two more, just one more. This is a little video here. Let me load up a little bit for you guys. NVIDIA showed Unreal Engine 3 running on Tegra 3. So let me see if I can get some bandwidths here for this so you can see. Let's see, boring talking. Yeah. So here we go. It starts the little demo right about here. And so this is apparently a full up-port, down-port ready version of Unreal Engine 3, meaning that people that develop for PC or for Xbox would be able to kind of easily convert their games to and from these devices. This is obviously, based on the Windows logo at the bottom, this is the, I think this is the Tegra WinRT device. And you can tell it looks really cool. They're saying, I think, 30 to 40 frames per second this was running at. I'm guessing the resolution is 1280 by 800. Just throwing that out there. I from trying to remember the specs, but it looks really nice. There's no enemies on screen. There's no special effects going on or anything like that. But it leaves me believing that that these WinRT devices could stand out. And when you can get Unreal Engine 3 working, I'm really looking forward to UT 2004 on the tablet. Looking forward to that.
Because you're going to be doing all the motion stuff like this and shaking it around.
But when I use my two fingers to zoom in on your head and just tap your head for a headshot, boom, it's going to work. Cheating, but who cares? It's UT 2004. Everybody else cheats but me anyway.
There'll be a new weapon only for the tablet users.
I crush your head. I crush your head.
Just take your fist and slam all over the screen until you kill everybody on there. Yeah, I think that would work. Let's see. Anybody else have anything else they want to add before we get into our hardware software picks of the week, which I don't have any? Oh yeah, I do here. I have something. Anything else?
No.
Okay, I'll actually mention this before I forget. We're gonna try to play a little bit of Counter-Strike Go tonight. I don't know how long I'll be around. We're not gonna do a live stream of it, so if you want to play, you'll have to join up with us. You won't be able to participate passively watching the live stream, but you need to sign up for our Steam community that I just formed this week because it just seemed way more efficient than everybody adding me as a friend. So go to the Steam communities and look up PC Perspective. Pretty straightforward. I think it's steamcommunities.com/group/PCPer.
Hey, before we go on to the hardware picks, I got one thing.
Yeah.
So what card is this?
That is...
Two fingers.
I know this. That is an FX 5700 or something like that.
No, it's the 5800.
Okay. See, I thought the
He was
5800
totally wrong.
I thought the 5800 had a larger, louder heatsink than that.
No, that's the what 5800 Ultra. This is just the standard 5800.
Okay.
These were not still mass produced, but a few of them were, and I somehow, sillily enough, got one.
I'll have to see. Yeah. Here's the page again. It is. Let me bring this back. steamcommunity.com/groups/PCPer, and here you can see we have 41 members. 5 of them are in game. 22 are online. The group player of the week is me, because I was the first person to join. I have a Steam rating of 1.9. I hope that's good. I have no idea. And there's all our members.
Do you add it the way you add a group or a friend?
Just go to that. Yeah, you can add it from the Steam client as well. I'm sure. Just look for Steam Group PC Perspective, and we're going to play CS:GO. We're trying to figure out if we're going to have a server or not. And let me bring this webpage up as well. Sorry, this is kind of happening on the fly. So after all of our troubles trying to set up stuff last week, we got a wonderful email from a viewer, listener, all of the above, named Cam Foster, who works at this company, and the guy who runs the business as well. They're both fans of the site. They wanted to offer us up a server that we could use for our LAN parties after the podcast and that kind of stuff. So ALX Tech is offering to host the PC Perspective kind of LAN parties for us. They do web hosting and that kind of stuff, but they also do, let me bring this up here. They do game hosting starting at 65 cents per slot. So that's per month. So if you want a 10-slot server, they have a whole list of games that they'll be able to help you with. alxtech.net is the URL for that. They do web hosting starting at $10 a month. It's all cPanel based stuff, so it's really easy to use and take advantage of. And I'm really excited to try. I've never used, what are they, the CPGS, cPanel game servers. So apparently you just have the easy ability to stop, start, configure these servers from a centralized control panel. So we'll be able to run a UT 2004 and a Counter-Strike server at the same time just to fulfill all of Josh's desires.
Wildest dreams.
And Dodds will be able to do Dodd sauce.
Dot sauce.
Dodd sauce. So yeah, we'll be able to hook up all that. They're trying to get it up and running for us tonight. Although it was kind of a last-minute thing, so we may just have to use our Steam community group, and I'll join a server, and you guys can join along in. So we're going to try to do that, but like I said, we won't be live streaming it. So if you're interested, make sure you add a Steam group, PC Perspective. Now let's get on to our hardware/software picks of the week. I guess I'll go first because I usually go first. And as I look it up, this is what I am selecting. This is actually a hand-me-down. Which makes it sound worse than it really is. This is the OCZ Revo Drive 3 X2 PCI Express based SSD, and it's a x4 connection. It's 480 gigs. I think is that the biggest one they make? No, they have a 960 according to their page here. If you go,
pricey though.
Yeah, but that's the benefit of the hand-me-down is it's free to us, free to me.
Yeah.
Thank you, Alan. So Alan sent this to us this week for a project we're working on. What project that essentially required us to have about the ability to write. This is one of the few cases where write speeds were really important. We were writing about 450, 470 megabytes per second of data to a disk in real time, and we could not afford drops or slowdowns. It all has to happen in real time. So we were originally using a single SSD. That obviously didn't get there. We did some RAID 0, and it kind of worked, but it had like little hiccups every once in a while. And when you were trying to record, it's all had, like I said, all had to be done in real time. It was an issue. So I had Alan send this to us, and so far it works. And when you, let's see, we recorded a file. We recorded some gameplay for about a minute. And it was about 17 gigabytes of data, raw throughput, and that was 1080p, not even 2560 by 1600. So don't worry, Alan, it is being well utilized.
It's being well torture tested.
Yeah. So I don't know how long till I kill all the memory, all the NAND on this.
Oh, you got a while.
Okay, good.
Until you put it in RAID, and then it'll just die.
Now it's not our primary drive; it's our secondary. So. Should I do a secure erase anytime I want on it, or does that not matter?
Actually, you cannot secure erase that drive.
Oh, okay. Well, I guess I don't really. As long as it can handle about 500 megabytes per second, worst case.
Yeah, the only way to snap those out of it is to write sequential front to back, like a big file.
Well, we can do that. And
that's all you're doing.
In about
500 megabytes per second, yes.
You're
about
basically
12 minutes, I think we can do
constantly
that.
doing the thing that
We
I
have
do
the
to
technology.
them to make them like new again. So.
Yeah. Somebody else suggested in the chat room we should have done a RAM disk. That'd have been a good idea, except
Before
we can only put 64 gigs of memory in a system. And I just, like, one of our files that we just did was about 16 gigs. And I think we've done some that are like 33 or 34 gigabytes. And this is also why we had to put Thunderbolt on this system, so we could transfer that off to another storage device. Because even at 480 gigs, which I thought was huge for one of these types of devices, which it is.
Wait, it's one of those types of devices?
It's one of those.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, one of those.
What do you mean, Wii devices? So yeah, that was my pick. It's an oldie. It's inexpensive. It's obviously not necessary for gaming.
But it's well loved.
Says you.
Special use cases, very beneficial device. That's it. Jeremy?
Well, I mean, you could be saving up for that.
Okay.
Or if you wanted to totally blow $300, the Parrot AR Drone 2.0. I'm sure you've run into it before. It's a quadricopter.
I might have one of those.
It also is powered by an ARM Cortex A8.
Nice.
It will accept a lot of the commands that anything that can communicate with the Cortex A8 will give it.
Okay.
So it is ridiculously hackable.
You should not be telling Ryan this.
No, probably not, especially considering that, some of the projects have put a flamethrower on top of it. They've slapped bottle rockets on top of it with automatic launchers. That there's someone apparently that even put one of the SD's rockets on it, which probably gave it a wee bit of an afterburner boost. But hey, there's a lot of fun things that you can do apart from just flying this quadricopter. You can hack the thing and, put HD cameras on it, put spotlights on it to scare the heck out of people. There's a radio conversion mod. Just give it a shot if you got $300 lying around that isn't desperately needed for your computer. It sounds like a lot of fun. And let's see what Ryan does with it.
I thought about bringing it in here several times. There's just a lot of cables that dangle around here and stuff. I just don't think that's a good idea in the long run. By the way, if we switch back to this camera, I just want to point out that the Revo Drive 3X2 should be more than capable of handling our 5 megabytes per second, as it is the blue line there that indicates sequential write speeds over 1.2 gigabytes per second.
He's a fast.
Yeah, so we should be good. Josh, what do you got?
I'm going cell phone crazy.
Oh, no.
$27 to pick up 32 gigs of micro SD, and it's a decent G-Skill brand. Apparently has decent performance. I just couldn't resist, even though I haven't filled up my 16 gigs on my phone. I know it's going to do it sometime. So why not just waste the money now and have it just sitting around?
Fair enough. Yeah.
So
what are you going to do with that 32 gigs?
What?
What are you going to do with that 32 gigs?
I'm going to put my 2 gigs of MP3s on it.
All 2 gig of it that he's ever downloaded.
Massive amount of MP3s that I do not own. I just thought, might as well. $27, 32 gigs. And, it just absolutely amazes me that they can put 32 gigs in just that little tiny thing.
Like
and they've got 64 gig ones, same size.
Oh, it's so amazing.
Same low price.
All right.
No.
Alan?
Yeah, so if you ended up buying the video card that Jeremy was wishing was being made with 12 gig of RAM on it, that would of course make your system memory grossly, inadequate, right?
So to speak.
So to speak. So this should be out next month. It's actually going into the storage test bed. It is a Kingston, what's the full name? Kingston HyperX Genesis 32 gig. It's 4 by 8 gigabytes of DDR3 1600, which is at some outlets, but it's not at all of them yet. So I'm guessing it's pre-order right
32 gigs of memory.
32 gigs of memory.
Yeah, seems reasonable to me. Yeah, I got no problem with
that. For about as much as you spend on the motherboard, but
yeah.
Hey, but my 32 gigs of memory is like 1/8 that price.
I know, right?
It's just
but
as
it's
fast,
10 megs per second.
Oh.
Yeah, it's a little bit slower.
I thought that flash was
just shove a bunch of those into your motherboard and see how it works.
I think they're pin compatible with the DIMM slots.
Next QuakeCon, Josh's phone will have 4 of these plugged into it.
Oh, I was going the other way. I was going to take the SD cards and plug them into the motherboard DIMM slots.
Oh, sweet.
And they're dual inline, so you get paired, and you get to shove them all the way up. That's a lot of memory.
Yeah, that's so many gigabytes.
Yeah.
We should really try that. Now let's not. So that's going to wrap up the show for this week. Again, a reiteration just from the beginning. If you want to join us live, pcper.com/live is the place to do it, and pcper.com/podcast is the URL to give to all your friends to share the wonderful joy that is the 4 of us talking for an hour plus each week or so. Look at that! Look at that! Come on, we should use this shot all the time. Except Jeremy's always picking his nose. Josh is always brushing his hair, and
yeah,
Alan, he's always look at that. He's boozing it
drinking
up,
wine.
Boozing it
It's
up.
insane. It's probably just cranberry juice.
No, it's actually
let's
wine.
hope so for our sake. Let's see what else we got. YouTube.com/PCPer if you want to see all of our videos. Facebook.com/PCPer. Twitter.com/PCPer. Gplus.to/PCPer. Did they start that?
Yeah.
How do I do that?
I don't know.
So somebody told me I can get plus.google.com/PCPer. I don't know how yet. So don't steal that from us. Damn it. Somebody already did it, didn't they? So that's it. We'll see you next week for another rousing edition of the PC Perspective podcast. And thank you again to where did we go? ALX Tech, alxtech.net for helping us out with the server. And make sure you join the Steam community group, PC Perspective, and we'll play some games sometimes. Do some
Thanks,
things.
Cam. Cam's been talking to me for a while, so that's kind of neat that he's doing this for us.
Oh, cool. Thank you very much. All right, that's it. I'm Ryan Shrout.
I'm Jeremy Hellstrom.
Jeremy's packets are getting
Are
crisped
dropping.
at the border right
Yep.
now as we speak. And I'm Josh Walrath.
And I'm Alan Malventano.
Yeah, see, all the American packets were just fine, everybody.
I'm so
Yep.
glad I'm paying extra for my internet right now. That's just great.
It sounds like you're calling in from the moon. And the video looks like it too. If we can make it, we'll make it black and white in post.
Jeremy was instantly transferred to Mars. He's on Curiosity.
Yep. Sitting on it right now.
Bye, everybody.
Good night.